Hello, everybody. Thank you for returning to the second installment of this difficult but important documentary. Since I released Chapter 1 yesterday, I've really started to see the bigger picture. I've realized it's so much bigger than Bronze Age pervert. For so many years, I was taking the blue pill. And then one day, I took the red pill. But then, you start to look into where exactly your red pill dealer is getting his supply from. And then you start to see that, these pills, they don't grow on trees. They're made in factories. They have to be produced. No one ever talks about where these factories are or who's producing these pills. And what I'm starting to realize with this investigation is that there is only one engineering diagram for the production of these pills. There are competing facilities producing these pills, but there's only one blueprint. And the people who know how to produce these pills, they're talking with each other in ways that you do not understand, in ways that they are not sharing honestly with the world. That is what I'm here for. You would be amazed at what's going on behind the scenes of the pills that you think you're getting. There's absolutely no media coverage of this. Like, not even the alt media is covering this, because this is the true story behind the production of the alt media. Okay? I did not want to discover this. This is going to be so much more work than I ever asked for. I was just doing my research like a responsible scholar, and I'm going to follow this out. I'm going to go where it leads. What pill is that? Like, what do you call that? There's no pill for that. There's no color for that. That's where I'm at right now. And that's where I'm going to bring you. Okay, so this chapter begins with the very first line of Bronze Age Pervert's book description on Amazon. Now, the reason we're going to spend a fair bit of time on this is because this is one of the most crucial marketing spots for a published book. It's the first thing that people see on the Amazon page where purchases are made. So there's good reason to believe that what we find in this line, it means something. It's going to have like really conscious, intention, let's say. All right. So in the very first line, Bronze Age Pervert strategically invokes a mention that he received in an article in The Atlantic. The article was written by someone named Rosie Gray. And that article in The Atlantic was published on February 10th, 2017. In that article, Rosie Gray cites dialogue that she had in an interview of some kind with Curtis Yarvin, also known as Moldbug, one of the great neo-reactionary theorists. In that article, Rosie Gray cites Yarvin as mentioning that Bronze Age Pervert was his source in the White House. Now, something to keep in mind is that this was also cited in the June 1st Vox article that I just discussed at length in the first chapter. Okay, so these people are putting a lot of weight on this article in The Atlantic. Here's what Tara Burton, in her June 1st article, does not mention. Here's what nobody is mentioning. Here's what the mainstream media is not telling anyone. Not even the alt media is telling anyone. I was blown away when I saw this. I never heard anything about this. Did you know that in March 2017, 1 month after Rosie Gray cites Moldbug in The Atlantic as having a source in the White House, Rosie Gray was promoted by The Atlantic to White House correspondent? I kid you not. Think about that. I'll give you a moment. A little weird, right? A little freaking weird, I would say. I mean, hey, maybe there's some good explanation for it. I don't know, but I'm just laying out the facts. What's really going on here? Now, one hypothesis is that through Yarvin, Rosie Gray finds out who Bronze Age Pervert is, in the White House. And because she gained this knowledge through Moldbug's lead, once she had this knowledge, it sealed her unrivaled strategic usefulness in the Atlantic. I mean, once you know who that person is, you have leverage over everyone else in your immediate, department, right? So it would make sense that she would get promoted for that reason. Okay, who knows though? That's only one explanation. A second hypothesis is that this is probably what is considered to be the more likely possibility, at least according to public opinion, which, by the way, you cannot trust whatsoever, but, we can think about it. So the second hypothesis would be that Moldbug did not really have any source in the White House, and he was really just trolling Rosie Gray, for the lulz, to sow confusion within the cathedral, which he is known to loathe. In this possible scenario, Moldbug's maneuver of feeding this false information to Rosie Gray would be an extraordinary hyperstitional accomplishment. And mind you, this is the conventional wisdom. This is what everyone thinks is most likely. Okay, so I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all here. If this is true, what it basically means is that Rosie Gray, in her arrival into the White House, was basically serving as host to Moldbug's meme that he implanted in her about having a source in the White House. In other words, Rosie Gray becomes Moldbug's source in the White House. There never was any real Bronze Age pervert, except as a fiction deployed by Moldbug. But because this fiction effectively propels Rosie Gray into the White House through the leverage that it exerts over her competitors within the Atlantic, BAP becomes a real and veritable political force. So basically, through this kind of very, very high level 4D viral techniques, I mean, we are talking about viral technique virtuosity we have not seen since at least the Romans. they knew their viral techniques. By the way, there is a lot of textual support for this. If you look through Moldbug's writings, here I did an in-depth search of his deeper thought process. If you look at everything he's ever said about mind control through memes, there is just tons of stuff. Look at all this. Literally 6 pages of nothing but how to brainwash people with memes. Also, this guy's a computer scientist. He could basically change every single thing you think through the computer in like 5 lines of code. He's high level, I'm telling you. Look at this. He's mapped it all out. I'm telling you. Like, we're not talking about a normal person here. We're talking about a fucking genius. And a genius of very, very dubious, let's just say, and alarming political leanings, okay? Okay, so you still might just be thinking, well, I don't know, Justin, you might just be getting a little too imaginative. But let's look a little bit deeper. I told you this one was going to be a doozy. So we might wonder, reasonably, where did Rosie Gray even come from? Interestingly, I looked into it, and she got famous mostly for covering Occupy Wall Street. And for BuzzFeed, typically, at the time. The breakthrough moments was when she was featured in a dust-up with Tucker Carlson's Daily Caller. So you notice all of these very strange cross-ideological encounters in which suddenly someone from one opposing side does something to make the other opposing side become more famous. Yeah, this is gonna be a recurring pattern, okay? In March 2014, as I understand it, a reporter for the Daily Caller tweeted some very rude comments about Rosie Gray, which I dare not repeat here. But I have to kind of say for context, I have no idea if this is true, but they were alleging that Rosie Gray was sleeping with one of her sources. The name being Eli Lake. And I looked into this guy, and wow, does this guy have a laundry list of strange journalistic incidences. I couldn't really make heads or tails of it. Oh, but Eli Lake has been accused of being in the pocket of the Georgia lobby. And I don't mean the state in America. I mean, the country near Russia. We're going to put this on hold for now, but this is going to return in ways that will astound you. Hint, Tara Burton, the Vox author who starred in our first chapter, she actually spent some time in Georgia at a crucial moment in our plot. So, yeah, just put that in the back of your mind for a moment. If you look at the source provided by the guy who made the rude tweets about Rosie Gray, it's a post on what used to be called Fire Dog Lake. I think they've kind of rebranded, so it's different now. But if you go to that source, it's kind of gossipy. I have no idea how true it is. That post suggested that Rosie Gray's father is actually a fiction writer. And he has a strangely reactionary angle in his fiction writing. And it might remind you of someone. Peter Abrams, which is Rosie Gray's father, authored what can fairly be described as a racial bloodlust fantasy called Tongues of Fire. Here's a quote from it. And in that moment, he felt a flooding of desire in his penis so strong, so quick, that it sucked in all his energy and made his mind a haze. Bodyguard in the night, and danger found him right away. In the haze, he saw Naomi's face as it was an orgasm. His penis, not quite fully hard, fell like a bird shot at the instant of takeoff. I don't know. I feel like I've heard some kind of strange, weirdly erotic male fantasy type of language in the news lately. Well, it'll come to me. Anyway, that's kind of dubious. Very reactionary. Very, what the progressive people today would, I think, find highly problematic, to be honest. So if it's true what they say about how the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, then we would expect Rosie Gray to be similarly aligned as her father, Peter Abrams. Also, why do they have different last names? That's a little sketchy. Peter Abrams apparently also has a pseudonym called something Spencer Tuckett or some shit like that. Why are these people all like making all these different identities for themselves? I don't know. I feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. Anyway, we would expect Rosie Gray to be ideologically similar to Peter Abrams. So if he's a reactionary, one might wonder, is she really a progressive journalist? Why is she talking to Moldbug? Why does she seem to be getting her position in the White House through Moldbug somehow? Look, I don't know. I'm just laying it out there. Okay. So where does this leave us? Well, we're still piecing together different parts of the puzzle. Only at the end are we going to be able to make a balanced and rational inference about the Bayesian ideal conclusion, okay? So you'll have to bear with me. Just take this all in and try to build a mental model as we go. But I'll finish this chapter with the following. We've looked at two mainstream progressive journalists who have played exceptional roles in elevating the public image of certain fringe reactionary thinkers on the internet. Tara Burton and Rosie Gray. What both of these two people have in common is that they're supposedly progressive journalists, but they have characteristics and traits and background features and also timings in their career that are just absolutely improbable. And then the two reactionary figures, Bronze Age Pervert and Moldbug, first of all, they appear to be quite cozy with these progressive journalists who they're supposed to have contempt for. But it's not just that. It's that they both appear to be promoting themselves and their political power through the speech and writings and activities of these two progressive journalists. And whether these progressive journalists know that this is happening and they're consciously cooperating with it as part of this plot that we are slowly uncovering, or if they are being played by Bronze Age Pervert and Moldbug, that's an open question. That's going to be one of the things we need to try to figure out. Oh, by the way, Moldbug's parents were communists, I do believe. I read that in his writings. So maybe Bronze Age Pervert is a bot that Moldbug has crafted. But Moldbug is, I mean, he's like a really good computer scientist, I'm telling you. One of the best. And he might just make Bronze Age Pervert like a really, really good bot. Like, we basically, you know, we can't spot it. Maybe Bronze Age Pervert is a shared account. And so maybe Tara Burton, Rosie Gray, and Moldbug, they're all friends. So maybe Bronze Age Pervert is an account that Moldbug, Tara Burton, and Rosie Gray take turns writing for. And they kind of all get to say whatever they want for it to feed their stories. So this is one of the reasons why the next chapter is going to focus on a quantitative network analysis. Basically, my research strategy is this. We need to find who on the internet is connected to Rosie Gray and Moldbug and Bronze Age Pervert and Tara Burton. And I think if we can find the probably very small number of people who meet that criteria, we'll have some very promising leads to help us solve this admittedly quite difficult and befuddling puzzle.